I'd like to start by mentioning that there is a very creative greeting in Swahili, I think it is, in one of the African dialects, which asks, how are your dreams? So instead of saying, how are you, you ask somebody, how are your dreams? And I'd like to say that personally, my dreams have been great lately. And they've been fulfilled by having this book become a reality. It's the effort that went into this book is truly tremendous. And I'd also like to start by mentioning that part of the Arabic culture, as expressed in its language, has to do with the 1001 idea, the idea of a story. Because in Arabic, we have lots of words to describe stories. So we say qissa, or hadduta, or hikaya, or salfa, and each one means, has a different meaning completely. And today, or tonight, I'm going to just talk about a salfa, which is really a story, but with a lot of meaning and with a lot of proof built into it. And because this is a science institution, the science institution, my dreams, I thought of a very, very robust scientific law, or a set of scientific laws which are very, very robust and unnegotiable. And these are the laws of thermodynamics, which we've all studied. And I'm sure there is a painting here of Lord Kelvin somewhere in the building. But the 3 laws of thermodynamics, which you all studied, which were very tough, for me anyway, they were very tough, not just because of the ideas were tough, but also because they were always telling us, don't do this. So they said, energy cannot be created, energy cannot be destroyed. You cannot move heat from a cold, you cannot move energy from a cold object to a hot object. You cannot reach absolute zero. To me, it sounded like my parents scolding me as a kid. This was in the 19th century. In the 20th century, a 4th law came around. And they didn't call it the 4th law. They called it the 0th law. And the reason was it was so fundamental, it had to be the precursor of the other laws. And the reason I mentioned this story is that this is really the story of our book, of the book, because it is a precursor of the history that wasn't really mentioned, that wasn't talked about, that Professor Portman mentioned and that Dr. Wael mentioned, and that the other esteemed scholars talked about. So the hope here is that this will become the 0th law of healthcare as part of the story of civilization. And I just would like to mention also that a work like this has so many hidden hours of work, years, not really hours. The efforts of Professor Portman, of course, Professor Abdel Halim, the 1001 team, all the other members of the team who put in thousands of hours, literally, into this book is much appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I and Tarek just shared recently publishing a very interesting book on space technology, space exploration, and that was called One Planet. So what I was thinking really is to combine what we wrote about in this book, One Planet, and the 1001 Cures. So I came with a hypothesis, so I like to share with you this hypothesis. Looking into the history of medicine, we have lots of ways to look at it. We now looked at it as what Muslim physicians have done, what the Greeks and the Romans and so forth. But there is also another alternative. There is another way to look into the history of medicine. You may recall in the 60s when Yuri Gagarin and John Glenn went orbiting the Earth a couple of times, and they came back, and then followed by hundreds of astronauts and cosmonauts from all over the world, maybe from the main United States, Russia, and so forth. When they came down from their trips orbiting Earth, they came up with very interesting idea of what they have seen. I can share with you something that an astronaut said in 1985. He went on a space shuttle which was cruising at 28,000 kilometers per hour. It was above the Earth, around 320 kilometers. And what he said, while we were in space, in the first day, all of us, the 7 of us astronauts, went rushing to the window to look at everyone was pointing to his country. And at the 3rd day, everyone was looking at the continents where his country is located. And at the 5th day, everybody started looking at this beautiful Earth blue dot in the sky. So this concept of looking at a whole system, integrated system, unfragmented system, the whole Earth, is called the overview effect. Now, this overview effect has been experienced by many cosmonauts and astronauts afterwards. And as a matter of fact, there is Socrates, for example, at the 4th century. He mentioned something interesting regarding this overview effect. He said, humanity must rise above Earth and beyond to really understand what kind of world we are living in. So getting up and looking at a whole system would be really interesting than looking at it fragmented. And I think this notion has a really beautiful impact that when you look at Earth as a one system, then all other things are vanished. All the wars and mistrusts and greed and all of these things has gone. Also, you can notice there is no pollution, environmental pollution around. So everything looks really great as one system. So what I'm thinking here is, how would we tackle the history of medicine as a holistic, not fragmented into who is who did what, but looking at it as one system. I can imagine this system would be a beautiful big tree, evergreen, with lots of fruits, and these fruits are the inventions and the creations of mankind. For example, the discovery of anesthetics, discovery of antibiotics, the art of surgery. Even nowadays, we are talking about gene editing techniques like CRISPR-Cas9 and so forth. So if we can bring these fruits and focus on these fruits, will be really beautiful, regardless of who did what. So I think this is my hypothesis, and it can gain some discussion, of course. Thank you.